Hi everybody, I'm Tim from troutandfeather.com and thanks for viewing this YouTube fly tying tutorial. As you'll notice, we have a special guest on the show today, and it's one that a lot of you have been requesting time and time again, my great Uncle John. Uncle John, welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you for having me here.
Yeah, I'm glad. It's a pleasure. So a lot of you always have to put up with hearing my same tutorials week in and week out. Thus, I'm going to bring him back so we can pick his brain because he's got a ton of fly tying and fly fishing knowledge inside of it. So all of you who've been requesting to have him back, I got him sitting next to me. And I also have a list of questions to ask him today. So, you ready for this?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, we're going to pick his brain before this fly.
I hope you can.
I'm going to try. Well, I can tell you that from all my reading with fly fishing literature and fly tying, it seems like a long time ago, or we'll say 30, 40, 50 years ago, the knowledge and the information was tougher to come by.
Yes.
You basically could go fishing, talk to others, or possibly read some text on it. And we've definitely evolved from that point. Now, I'm sure you've come across a lot of great resources throughout your years.
Yes.
And I'm just going to go through some categories, and whenever I say a category, could you think of a couple different resources, books, DVDs that you could recommend to everybody?
Okay.
Too.
Yeah.
How about we'll start off with entomology, insects.
Entomology. Switcher Richard he was way back there when I started tying flies. And Art Flick. Art Flick is one of my favorite. Those two probably stand out in front of me right now.
Okay, so the Swisher Richards books and the Art Flick, that's the Streamside Guide?
Yes.
Classics. Okay, that's a great start so far. I guess I can't trick you too much. How about, let's just talk about fly fishing in general. Any books that are written about fly fishing that you just say, these are go-tos?
Well, I have to go back to Art Flick. Art Flick had his Streamside Guide, which covers not everything, but basically everything that you would need to go fishing in a fly that you would have to tie for the occasion.
Okay, didn't he take like a year off from fishing when he was writing that book?
Yes, he did. He took a year off when he was writing the book, and from that year, he came up with a lot of great flies and a lot of great tying material to use for that. Okay.
All right. Any other fishing books that you think of that whenever you think about going fishing, this is a great one to pull off to say, there's some good information in here?
Good information. I would say probably the Darby's had a book out that would cover a lot of flies, material, and anything that you would need to catch fish. I would say one him. Probably I'd go back to Art Flick again. His Streamside Guide was one. Then he had a Master Fly Fishing Guide that was really a good one that had more than one tire in there and more and personality in there.
Okay, now we're Pennsylvania fishermen. Any Pennsylvania guys that you could think of that you liked? Did you ever really get into the Marinero books, the Humphreys? Any of those you'd recommend?
I would recommend the Marinero. Okay. Marinero was he was a good fisherman, and he was also a good. Well, I consider him a good tyer. He come up with his X pattern or whatever he had was basically good. I mean, he had good ideas.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. And he wrote that. Is it Modern Dry Fly Code?
Yes, Modern Dry Fly and Ring of the Rise.
Ring of the Rise. Yeah. Yeah. The Ring of the Rise. Yeah. Okay. So those are some great books for you guys out there. How about fly casting? If you think of one person, you just say, "This is my go-to guy when it comes to learning how to cast that fly."
I would say Mel Kruger. Now, Mel Kruger I loved him because he was basically down common. I mean, he would tell you things, right now, this is the way you do it. You want to do it, do it. I mean, he says, there's not everybody that needs to know my method. There's guys that swing them flies back, and you're good casters, okay? But you follow my method, and you're on the gun.
Okay, that's that Krieger, K-R-E-I-G-E-R, something like that. Was he a southern fly fisherman? Florida?
No. Yeah, he went to Florida. He went to Canada. He went to Alaska. I mean, he's been all over the country.
All over. And that was maybe DVD, VHS videos with him. Okay. So guys, check out Mel Krieger for the fly casting.
Another one. You want me to tell you another one?
Say my guy.
You're whatchamacallit, Joan Wolfe.
Okay. There we go.
Joan Wolfe was. You remember when we was up there and she told you how to. Your mistakes you were making.
She's
quickly.
A very good caster,
yeah,
yes.
Yeah.
She's just an absolute legend in fly casting.
She has a good DUV.
You got it. Yeah, and she does have a great DVD. In fact, I just stole it off of my Uncle John because my wife wanted to see the Joan Wolfe DVD to learn a little bit about fly casting, which I was excited to share with her. I'll give that back to you someday.
Okay.
All right, we got two more. How about if you're just reading for pleasure? Is there an author you like to turn to that just writes those great fly fishing books?
I would say John Gingrich. You know,
Garrick, yeah.
Garrick. I call him Gingrich, but Garrick's his name. Yeah, he gets you emotionally upset. Not upset. He gets you emotionally say, "Is this possible? Did he do that?" I have to ask that question to him if I ever see him. Was you on that stream when that guy told you to stand still, don't move? He's laughing. He knows it.
I know that. I bet all of you know the exact chapter in that book where they were possibly trespassing, and there was a boat coming on them, and he said, "Don't move," because they're looking for moving people, and he just stood there like a reed. I remember the exact chapter you're talking about. That's funny. All right, so John Garrick, I'm sure a lot of you have read his books. Last one, probably the most important for my channel. Are there any, I want to say, oldie but goodie fly tying books that you say, geez, these are books you should probably just pick up to have in your collection to refer to because they have patterns that may be forgotten?
Probably. What's the one guy out in West out there? He has a book out.
Jack Dennis?
Yeah, Dennis's book would cover a lot of patterns. They're supposed to be Western patterns, but his patterns, you could use them here. I mean, it's an occasional with fish. You have to remember one thing about fish when you're fly fishing or fishing with anything. They're hungry. They're looking for food. It doesn't matter what you throw. If they're hungry at the time, they're going
to go for it.
Yeah.
Was there a female fly tyer that you thought was just an excellent resource?
Yeah, I would say Helen Shaw.
Okay.
She that's where I learned to tie flies, from her book. I mean, she had a book out that step by step. I mean, she covered every little step there was that you could imagine.
Yeah.
Not her picture wasn't a little picture; it was the whole page.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say Helen Shaw.
All right, great. So we just took you guys through a bunch of books, videos, DVDs that will help your fly fishing, fly tying, and just everyday pleasure. He's not off the hook yet. I have a couple more questions for you. In a lot of my fly tying videos, I love to show tyers variations because I think when you're a beginning fly tyer, you don't know that even though the recipe says this, you can change it and make it into something else, possibly better. Whenever you're tying fly variations, which I know you tie a heck of a lot of, just like me, what's a suggestion or a tip you can give those fly tyers out there who haven't really modified flies from their set recipe?
I would say basically, first of all, you have to get material that is lifelike. It's going to breathe in the water or make it look like something alive. This is what you want. There are a lot of materials out there, okay, like I told you about rabbit, okay, rabbit is one, okay, that would do that. And feathers, I would go into ostrich, I would go into peacock herl, stuff like that that gives life to your fly.
So don't be afraid to kind of make that.
Yeah, don't be afraid to use it.
Okay, I'm going to say a bad word here. Synthetics?
Well, you know what? I'm not a man of synthetics. I have to start out real quick. Okay. I am back to where it's feather, fur, tinsel, and that's it, okay? The basic furs, the natural things that was in the water, like muskrat, they were in the water. Okay. This color is there, and they know that color. It's a basic color of any nymphs in that, okay? Okay. So you got it right there. No, I had friends that used synthetic, including my nephew here. He likes synthetic because synthetic,
some of them, yeah.
They're good. Don't get me wrong, they're good. But you know, if you're gonna be a realistic fly tyer, I mean, you got to go back to the basics of natural material. Natural material cannot leave. I use ostrich a lot for nymphs. The head of it, okay. Instead of putting a shellback or anything on, I use that. Maybe around a quarter of an inch or maybe a little less on the front of the fly for the head and the shellback. Okay, whatever. Okay, but this is what I like. I like stuff like that.
Okay. Okay. And I can tell all of you, he is absolutely, when it comes to a natural fly tyer, he really prefers those natural materials. Like a lot of fly tyers, my Uncle John's a pack rat. He's got more materials than most fly shops on the east coast of the United States. And all of his packages of synthetics are pretty much untouched, unused. He's always saying, Tim, come over here, you can use any of these you want. And I open the boxes and I see every color. of every material that we can buy, and he's used very little of these synthetics because he loves natural materials. So I guess what we could learn from this, if you find a recipe that has a lot of synthetic materials, don't be afraid to reach for some of those naturals and substitute it, because you're going to get a lot of lifelike action out of it.
Oh, yeah.
How about two more? Let's just go down that path. If I ask you about some of your favorite natural materials that are just like your must-haves, these are your turn-tos. You talked about ostrich hurl. Is that something you just go out, you buy that from fly shops?
Well, I hate to say it, no. I usually go into Walmart, into their supplies for laundries and that, and they have mops and that, and they have
Like
dusters,
cleaning supplies,
yeah.
household items? Yeah.
They have dusters in it. Look for their natural dusters. They have dusters in there that they use the feathers.
Yeah.
Okay? And I look at them real close, you know. I don't just buy any old one. I pick, you know, I'll pick a dark one, a light one, you know, of ostrich, you know. And, yeah, that's what I do. I go there. And I also go to, I don't know if you have Joanne Fabrics around you or anything like that. I go in there, and believe it or not, they have a lot of furs in there, you know, fur material. And I pick it out, and I grab it, and I use it, you know, and whatever.
Okay. Now, I've heard so far you really love ostrich hurl, you love rabbit fur.
And
Couple other materials you would suggest?
I would suggest muskrat, okay? And I use some bear, okay? Bear, you know, for tailing or for stuff like that. But bears, it's all right. But I use let me think a little bit.
How about a hair? Is there a hair that's just, this is the hair you like?
I just showed Tim a hair that I had, and I used a lot of before, and I hadn't used it for a long time. It's finch. Now, finch tail, if you look at their tail, it is awesome. I mean, there is very little underfur on the tail, okay, and it stands out. And I like whatchamacallit, squirrel too, squirrel, and pine squirrel. Okay, pine squirrel is a little one. You know, I have a variety of squirrel tails. Tim knows that.
Yeah, you do. You do. Badger. Did you mean badger?
Badger.
Okay. For the badger tail.
Yeah, and the fur is nice fur on that. Nice fur on badger.
Okay. Two more questions, I guess. One question, then we'll get into this fly. There was a request from Sean. Sean, you comment on a lot of my videos, and you had said you were curious to know what Uncle John's thoughts about tube flies are. So, tube flies, what do you think about them?
Tube fly's an old fly. I can remember back, maybe around 40 years ago, a friend of mine, he was tying tube flies, and I said, well, what do you want to tie those? He says, well, they're good flies, you know. And I said, well, yeah. I says, but I have flies that just do as well as that. Why should I bother with your tube flies and go through that mess? So I never did. I never indulged in tube flies, okay. Tube flies seemed like there's not too much here. I didn't care for it because it did appeal to me, okay. But yes, they're good. They're good. And you know what? My friend once told me, he says, a blind chipmunk will find an acorn in a forest. Okay, this is the same thing here. A fish is going to be hungry, he's going to grab it.
Okay. All right, well then, we'll kind of get you off the hook now with those questions. Thanks for answering those. And let's move into the fly that you're going to be tying, and that's the Light Cahill.
Okay.
Beautiful fly. What style pattern are you going to tie? Is this going to be parachute?
It's just going to be the Catskill.
Okay, so we got Catskill-style.
That's one of my favorite flies. People, I don't think they even tie that too much anymore. Do you, Tim? The Catskill-style?
Not much. No, not much.
People do, but it's not it's an easy fly if you tie it. If you just want to do it one time, it's going to be very difficult.
Okay, so we're talking. All right, Uncle John. So we just showed them the recipe. We showed them a picture of the finished Cahill. Let's start tying this. You want to tell them about your vise, the hook you got in there, and then the thread you're going to use.
Okay, Tim. Tim, I like this vise Dynaking. I was sort of conned into getting it, but I find out that it's pretty good vices. It really holds your hook well, okay?
That's the key.
And I think that's primarily what you need, something to hold your hook so it won't move. Okay, what we're going to tie today is what Tim says we're going to tie Light Cahill, because I think Tim himself knows that the Light Cahill is a pretty versatile fly. It could imitate, well, not imitate, it could look like many flies, and yet it's still a Cahill. It could imitate pale morning dun or any light colored fly, okay? But I think probably the most important part, if you're going to use this fly or any fly, you have to have the size. I mean, size is important, and we'll go from there. We're going to use a 14, which I think is probably one of the most important things that you have to have, the size 14. I think a Cahill probably in sizes 12, probably to 16, but you can go smaller. But they're a larger fly, okay, and this is what we want. Is this right, Tim?
Yeah, that sounds good. And I think we have a Daiichi size 14. Maybe they're micro barb hooking. Yeah, the 1180. All right. And then what size thread are you be using?
I'm going to use a size 8, okay? I've been using 8 for a long time now. This might be hard for a beginner or somebody that doesn't know how to tie flies real well because it'll break easily. Okay, I think probably a 6 probably as well for a person. Don't you agree, Tim?
Yeah, I definitely do.
Okay, I think Tim uses an 8 too.
Yeah, so we're going to be using, looks like 8/0 unithread. The color is light ginger.
Light Cahill, yeah.
Or Light Cahill, you got it.
It is, okay. What we're going to do, we're going to start basically probably 3 or 4 islands back of the eye, okay? We're going to anchor our line. 1, 2, then we're going to lock it in by going back over it 1, 2, 3, okay? And we'll cut the excess off, which we always have a little waste no matter what you do. I'm sort of a person who likes to no waste, but you have to have a little. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to put our wing right now, so that this is the first thing I use. Maybe you can go to the tail and come up and put the wing if you want to, but basically this is the way you do it, okay? We're going to pick out a wood duck feather here. Wood duck, it's pretty hard to get sometimes, and it's pretty expensive unless you know a duck hunter like I know a duck hunter, which was Tim's dad, okay? I had obtained a lot of feathers from him. He killed a lot of duck. He was a very good duck hunter. What I do is I flare it out, okay, like this. And then I wet it with my little saliva from my mouth. If you prefer not using saliva on it, that's up to you. But I use the saliva on the tips, okay? And if you look at your feather, which is really good with Tim's thing, I don't have to separate it like I do with my at home. What I do is, if you don't have the light, you can't see it. Let me preen this out again, okay? Okay, what I do is, there's a tip right here. This tip, I cut it right out, okay? And basically we have a V shape, okay? We have a left wing and a right wing, okay? We'll wet it again, and I turn it over. A lot of guys, I think Tim rolls it too. You can roll them, but I prefer doing it this way. I'll put it together. Okay, what I have is the wings, okay? I have the wing, and what I'm going to do is measure the length of the wing, okay? Basically, it's from the eye of the hook to the bend of the hook, okay? But I prefer a little longer because wings are larger than a lot of people think they are, okay? The wings are basically something that it stands out, okay? And then I'll go up, I'll roll it over, and I'll hold it between my finger and put it back, and again, and I have it up there, okay? Okay, I make sure that that's anchored tight. I bring it back, and I'll put a little wedge under here, okay? Under the wing, okay? You can see how I'm building up a wing, okay?
Yeah.
Okay, and yet I haven't got it up a little more. I'll get it up a little more, so it'll stand up a little more. There she goes. What I'm going to do now is separate it, okay? I'm going to make my wings. Sometimes it takes a little while to get this done here. Okay, I think I got it now, okay? I'll put one up, and I'll come on the other side. Let me get these here. Okay. I'll come up and get another one, okay? I'll basically bring these up. All these feathers up, okay, I got them now. Okay, we're getting there. And what I do is I make a figure 8 up here. I bring them up. Okay, and up. And there's basically our wing. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You can see that it is fairly nice. Okay, right now we'll go from there. Okay.
Yeah, and
What do you
we're
think,
looking.
Tim?
Yeah, it looks fine. We're looking at it from the side angle, so it's tough because we see a lot of feathers that are, or fibers that are getting splayed. To go back to the wood duck, if you for all of you guys that kind of missed that, because he went through that really fast because he's very good at this. He held that wood duck flank up, cut out the center section because that stem sometimes will go the whole way up the center, and whenever you try to fold the flank over itself to get those tips lined up, that center stem, whenever
Correct.
it's in there, it'll really kind of mess it up. So don't be afraid to just, to mess around with that feather as he did. He just cut that whole center tip out. It removed, and he was able to then fold it over. And if you look at this fly, at least from our angle, you can see all those tips are lined up relatively perfectly, and that's exactly what he was going for.
Okay. Now, Tim. The next step is we'll cut this exit off. We'll try to get it on a slant. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So that it works in. Okay. You could see that. You could see the wings now are pretty nice.
Mm-hmm.
We'll bring our tying thread back to the bend of the hook, or probably right. You notice I'm bringing it pretty smooth. I don't want to make a bulk of anything. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to have any more weight than necessary. I think right there is perfect, and what it does, it's lined up with a barb. Okay. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to pull a tail out, okay? If I can pick one out here that... what I'm going to do now is get my barbs from the tail, okay? I'm going to flare it down like this. I want the dry fly. I want the ones that are not going to float. Okay, I'll cut off the eggs. Okay, now there's my tail. I will measure it. Okay, probably from the eye to the bend of the hook is probably the right size. Okay, you could make it whatever size you want, but that's the proper size. And I flare it on the one side. Okay, I keep it on a side facing me. Okay, and when I bring it up, it's probably going to set back real nice. Okay, and it did. Okay.
Yeah.
We're going to go from there. We're going to wrap it all in. What I'll do is I'll come back because I'm going to put my dubbing on, okay? And one thing about dubbing, okay, is this. The bodies of any mayfly or any fly that's on the water is fairly thin. It's not a heavy thing. The ones you see in the store, pardon me a minute. They're not like the ones you buy in the store with a heavy body that look real good. Oh, that's the one I want.
Yeah.
Well, that's not the case. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
The case is you want a thin body, and probably what I have in my hand is all you need.
Okay, let me show them what you have. Well, you put it a little closer to the hook. The viewers today are really going to dislike me. I've been moving this camera all over the place, catching up with you.
That's about it. That's probably too much. Okay. So you can see it's not very much. Okay. I'll put this up. Now, what you don't want to do is pull this thing tight to put your dubbing on. Just leave it relaxed, because your dubbing has 3 or 4 cords to it, and you want to get this intermingled right in the thread, okay? You want it to bind in, and when you pull it, it'll tighten up, okay? I did that deliberately, but I generally don't do that.
Okay. And while he's putting this dubbing on, to let everyone know, the hackle that he used for the tailing fibers came from a light ginger neck. He pulled it from one of the upper pieces. He was looking for some really stiff hackle that was going to, help to float this fly. Then you saw him as he pulled off all the fibers from that. So that's where that feather came from. We're going to be looking a little bit further down the cape for the dry fly hackle.
Okay, probably you could see there's probably only about a little more than an inch that I had put the dubbing on. Which is going to work out just fine. Okay, and what I do is I'm very careful, because I'll dub it in a few times going up. Okay, Okay, right about here is where I'm going to stop. And I'll go on the opposite side of my wing, okay, and put a couple turns there. Okay. Now I'm going to pick a hackle out that's going to suffice for that. And if Tim wants to talk a little bit more about it while I'm figuring the one I want.
No, I think this is probably a really frequent question that I get. People have trouble figuring out the correct size hackle for the pattern. And I think that's, I don't know about what your thoughts are, Uncle John, but I know sometimes when you go into a fly shop and if you look in their bins of flies, the hackles can be oversized on some patterns, undersized for others, and it almost looks suggestive at times. Whenever you're looking for a quality hackle, what's something that you really want to keep in mind?
Well, probably if you look at this hackle right here, well, I'll pull it off.
Okay.
When you're tying a dry fly, if you look at that, there's a webbing right to here, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Well, this part of this webbing is not desirable. You want a little webbing in there, okay? You can see there is a little webbing up to that, and that's desirable. And it's not anything, okay? So, let me check and make sure that this is the one.
Okay, I might see if I can get the camera on that. He has a little sizing tool on his vise just to double check. That's a neat little tool. You can pick those up at, I'm sure Cabela's, your local fly tying shop might have one. They're made by a few different vendors, and that little metal bar on the side, you simply will put the hackle on it, wrap it around, and look at the tips, and they'll line up with a size. And the smaller the number, the greater the size of the hackle. In this case, we're looking for around a size 14 hackle.
Right. Now, what I'm going to do now, Tim, is I'm going to cut off that webbing, okay?
Yeah.
I don't know if a lot of you fly tiers out there, me, what I do is I will cut, scissors are pretty sharp. I cut a little bit off like that. There's barbs on there right now. Mm-hmm. These barbs actually are going to be anchors. They're going to hold this hackle in when I'm wrapping, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So I'll tie it off. I put it on the face towards me and also the bird side towards me. When I talk about the bird side, it's a doll side. The bright side is the outside of the feather, okay?
Okay.
This is the doll side. It's going to be facing me on the side of the hook, okay? And I wrap it in, okay? I actually got it wrapped in right now, okay? I'm going to pull this back. Then I'm going to come on the other side and wrap it down so it doesn't tie into the wing, okay? And I'll come back over and stop right there.
Mm-hmm. Now.
Okay, I'm going to attach the hackle pliers to the hackle. And what I'm going to do is wrap it around. I'm going to wrap 1, 2, 3. That's probably enough, okay? I'm going to come through there. 1, 2. I'm going to go in the front. I'm going to put 3 hackles in the front. 1. Started 1. That's 1. 2. And 3. Okay, anything when you're tying a fly, don't feel it's so delicate, you know. You don't have to be sensitive about it, you know. You can go many ways with this. You can go, oh, I can't do this and I can't do that. Don't worry about it. It's only a fly. You can start all over again, okay? 1. That's 3. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to, I don't know about these scissors, but we're going to go in and clip this off, okay?
Yeah.
Okay. I got a 1/2 inch tool here, okay? I'm going to throw a 1/2 inch on right now. So it's I'm going to give this a little tug back. Okay.
Okay. Will you show them that 1/2 inch tool? That's a neat little tool.
Right here.
Oh, go down just a little bit. Right there. Yeah, that's a cool little tool. How old do you think that tool is?
Probably, I don't know, maybe 30 years old.
Jeez, and you still use it today?
Yeah. I'm sure. You know, you can get a pen, okay, and use the end of the pen just for a half-inch tool.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now I have my. Now I know Tim uses his hands, but I use my hands, but I prefer using this because I got a system here. When I go down, I'm going to go down and up, and I'm wrapping on. Okay. Now you could say, well, you're wrapping so many times with that half-inch tool. Yes, because I know when I'm done, I'm going to slide it through. See that? It's just like 3 turns, okay? It went real good, didn't it?
I'm not judging you for using that tool.
Okay.
I'm not going to lie. This fly is looking really pretty.
Is it looking good?
Yeah, it looks real
now,
nice.
Okay. Now, when I went between that hackle on the back, is what I want to flare the hackles out like this, okay? Mm-hmm. Because on a real fly, his legs aren't straight up and down at all. One point down like this, okay?
Yeah.
They're flared out. They're flared out. So you want that to flare out in the bottom, okay? To make it look realistic. Okay. Basically, we're done right now, okay? Mm-hmm. So I will cut it off right up here. Okay. There. We have a Light Cahill.
Oh, that looks wonderful.
Okay.
That looks wonderful. Let's let's see if we can reposition this. Can you turn the vise so it's facing us just like that? Yeah, that's great. And we'll take a peek at those. Oh, that's a perfect shot. Yeah, so everyone, you can see that those wood duck fibers, they're split like a perfect V, meant to imitate the wings on this mayfly, the adult dun.
Right.
And that looks really nice. Now, I have these bright lights on, and I'm going to turn these off for a second. Let me see if that will help these out at all. And now you might be able to see that V a little bit better. You'll see the barring on those fibers. All right, well, you can turn it back to the other position. We'll get the side view one more time. And we do have a picture of this finished fly, this Light Cahill. This is just a tremendous pattern, all around great searching pattern. Now, Uncle John, you put a good 5-6 wraps of hackle. Is that something you typically recommend for a fly that you're going to fish in a pool, in a riffle? Would you change that depending on where you're fishing?
This one here would be fished in a riffle, okay, because you could see there's a lot of hackle on there. If you was going to fish in soft water, you would probably put 4 instead of 5, and then you'd put, like I put 4 in the front, you'd put 3 in the front, okay?
Perfect.
And it would lighten the hackle up, and also the fly if you're in calm waters, okay, meaning it's still moving, okay, but not in rapids, okay. Rapid, if you'd put one with less hackle on, it's going to dive under, and you know, you're going to be fishing in nips.
Absolutely. Well, Uncle John, thank you. Thank you again for being on the show. The Light Cahill is awesome. As Uncle John mentioned at the beginning, if you have any other patterns you'd like to see him tie in the future, he said he'd be happy to come back to tie a few more. Just send me an email or list something in the comments section below, and I'll get a few patterns over to him, and I'll see if there's anything that he's interested in tying. As I've mentioned in previous videos, my uncle also builds bamboo fly rods. So if you have any questions regarding bamboo fly rods, not appraisals, he'd be happy to answer them. So don't be afraid to shoot me an email, and I'll forward that information on to him. He is an incredible bamboo rod builder. If you want a bamboo rod built by him, you may have to wait in line, but let me know and I'll see if I can speed up the process for you. So Uncle John, thanks again for coming on. For all of you out there watching, if you have any questions or comments, don't hesitate to contact me via the comment section or my email, which is tcammisa@gmail.com. If you'd like to see more of these YouTube fly tying tutorials, you can view them on my YouTube channel, or you can check out my website, which is Trout and Feather. You can also like us on Facebook. So on behalf of my Uncle John and me, thanks for viewing, everybody, and good luck fishing this incredible fly, the Light Cahill.
Tight line.
All right, thanks, Uncle John.